K1100LT. These bikes were manufactured from 1993 through 1997. They're 100 horsepower, 16 valve, 4-cylinder engine, 5-speed transmission. The 93 had a 291 rear drive ratio, whereas 94 to 97 had 283 rear drive ratio. So the 93 is a bit buzzier than later years like this one. Point out some features. You have an accessory outlet here. Stock came factory ABS, AM FM cassette radio goes there, cigarette lighter. This cover can be clipped to that position so you can change cassettes or whatnot in somebody's fantasy world. Volume control, seek for the radio. Here we have controls for the electric windshield. This is not a gimmick. This really does work. Most people will end up finding that that's probably the best position around here, and when it rains or it's really cold, you kick it up a little bit. This one is, as you can see, fully functional. Oh, the windshield has seen better days. As they all do. These weren't super high quality plastic, even though they were expensive. This mirror has been glued back together. Facing fell off, apparently. Fresh tires. I will point out one of the weak links to these bikes. These have floating discs. Well, they float on these pucks, and as you can see, these pucks are breaking. You can go a long time like this, but once they start breaking, start looking for replacements. This side's already been done, and I'm going to need to do something with this side. This had moto lights mounted at one time, so the fender's been notched. Fork boots added to protect the stanchion tubes. There's a little crack in the lens. Yeah, remnants of the moto lights. The alternator cover, the plastic cover, broken there. Insignificant, but cosmetic. You can see the newer Spiegler hoses. There's no play in the rear drive. Finish is beat. It's dull. See here, the pad's not there. Finish is dull. Blemishes, scratches. It's got 130,000 miles on it. But she runs like that. I'll point out some weak points. Brake discs, as I've mentioned. Some of these had bad stanchion tubes where the chrome was flaking off. So you always want to check those. Make sure there's no pitting. See how this crash bar is? If your stanchion tubes do that, it rips the fork seals and it leaks. If the crash bars do this, who gives a fuck? It's just ugly. Weepy front cover on a K-bike is not an issue. This is pretty much normal. They all weep to some degree. What you do want to look for is find your oil/water pump. Look for the hole, the weep hole, and see if it's leaking. This one has... needs me to look at it closer on the lift. Moving on. Weak points. Weak points. Exhaust crack here. The mount on the other side here. If that mount fails, this exhaust twists. When the exhaust twists, it breaks the pipe. So you want to check up here and make sure that these are not broken. These will make a lot of knocking noise when that's got a crack in it. Sounds like the engine's got issues. Sooty on the back is normal. These K-bikes, even though they're a parallel rear drive, they don't have the failure issues like they did with these same rear drives from 2000 on. But you still want to check and make sure it doesn't have any play. If you do find play, make sure you're getting play at the right place. You shouldn't have play at all. But sometimes you'll have a bad parallel pivot bearing and the rear drive is actually moving on the swing arm, not the bearing in the rear drive. So make sure you know what you're looking at. Brake master cylinders are an issue with these bikes. They sit around, the brake master fails, gets corroded. This one's already been replaced. Front is more expensive. When the front goes bad, you're looking at a whole master, which is several hundreds of dollars and a lot of labor to replace it. With heated grips, the wire runs into the end of the bar, down, plugs it under the tank, so there's some disassembly involved in replacing the master cylinder. Splines. The transmission needs to be removed every 40,000 miles to clean and lubricate the input shaft splines on the transmission and the corresponding splines in the clutch disc. It's not a huge task with these bikes. It's not like the later ones, like the oil heads or the later K bikes. But you know, it's a few hours of work. They don't fail like the hydraulic clutch operated BMWs did. These are pretty reliable.